Hello, dear friends. This is Cardiac Radio at 11 p.m. We're studying the book Harvest of Light, Ceifa de Luz by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier. This book was psychographed in 1972, published by the Brazilian Spiritist Federation in 1979, and translated in 2018. Yes, through Cardiac Radio's team. And the book is fully translated under revision, and we share with you the free translation while we revise it. Soon we'll turn it to the publisher, the Brazilian Spiritist Federation, hoping that sooner than later they publish it for your study opportunity. Meanwhile, you can study here at Cardiac Radio, okay? And today we're going to be studying chapter 52. Yesterday we were studying chapter 51, Opportunity and Us. And Emmanuel told us about let us not forget that the possibility comes from God and work comes from us, excuse me. Now reflecting on this possibility, it's as if God is saying, yes, you can do it. But it's on us to say, you're right. Yes, I can. What have you found out in the last 24 hours regarding what you can do? The possibilities that God is granting to you, and you turning them into opportunities. The possibility of developing a virtue. The possibility of developing a skill. The possibility of building something. The possibility of collaborating. Possibilities that were concessions of God, granted by God, and we accepted it with honor and said, God, we're going to transform it into an opportunity. So God is constantly telling us, yes, you can. And we need to repeat, you're right. Yes, we can. Right? This is the lesson of yesterday. Well, we never do anything alone, right? When we talk about possibilities being transformed into opportunities, divine possibilities transformed into human opportunities, we're talking about the need of transforming them in our relationships. That's the essence of it all. And that's why today our chapter is about in the spiritual family. That's exactly what our dear Emmanuel is going to reveal to us in the spiritual family. He's going to lead us into a new understanding of how we can transform possibilities from God into opportunities in our relationships. Are you ready? I see many friends who are here. Sunshine, Valera Benfica, hello friends, Dulce Story, Teresa Castro, Dona Verducci, and others. I see there are more friends here, and these are the ones that I can't see. I'll probably open in my phone to make sure that I can see you. Right? Right? Yes. Where are we now? Oh. Let me see if we disappeared for real or we're still there because I can't see the screen. So in a second, we will visualize exactly. Yes, we are. Sorry, friends. Just double checking. Thank you, thank you. Hello, Lisa Tellis. How are you? I can see you. I can see you. Every friend coming in. And Carol Correa is here with us. Yay!
Hello, friends. It's nice to be with you.
Hi, Carol. What a joy. What a joy.
joy.
Right?
Right.
So, let us go to the point. Huh? Right, Carol?
Right.
The camera here is rehearsing. We are going to practice the possibility of patience, turning it into opportunity of patience, right, Carol?
For everyone.
For everyone. So Emmanuel begins this chapter, and we'll read the chapter right now. Ready? Chapter 52. Let us visualize Emmanuel through Chico Xavier psychographing this chapter with the sole intention, for sure. And we don't say this daring to know exactly his intention because I'm sure it's beyond what we're going to say. But we attempt to say that one of his main intentions was to educate us with love, with kindness, right? In the spiritual family, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank of your own eye in your own eye? Said Jesus, as in Matthew chapter 7, verse 3. The more we enter the knowledge of ourselves, the more we are obligated to understand and to excuse in the support of the balance in us and around us. Hence, the need for coexistence, in which we mirror each other, not to criticize one another, but to understand each other through blessed reciprocity in the various courses of tolerance in which life situates us in the climate of terrestrial evolution. Thus, in the school of existence, those, as described below, are something that Emmanuel is going to explain. Those that only identify the imperfect side of their brothers and sisters without observing the positive side. Those companions that are never willing to forget the offenses to which they have been subjected. Those that only remember their adversaries for the purpose of destroying them without recognizing their difficulties and sufferings. Those that do not analyze the reasons of others, focusing solely on the rights which they consider to belong to them. Those that cannot see themselves as censured and adverted at any time. Those that are considered invulnerable in the opinions they issue or conduct that they embrace. Those that do not recognize their own faults and keep an eye on the faults of others. Those that are not open to utter a single phrase of consolation and hope in favor of the fallen in moral shortage. Those that use the truth exclusively to threaten or injure. Perhaps those companions will be, of all of us, they will be the ones that require the most understanding and tenderness, since unfit in their intolerance, they are always helpless and in need of love. Tolerance again. It seems to be an important topic, huh? It seems that tolerance is center stage for us because it relies on understanding. To tolerate, we need to understand. Some people restrict themselves to the understanding that to be tolerant is to put up with a person. But in Spiritism, tolerance goes beyond it. To tolerate is not to put up thinking like, oh, I can't, but okay, whatever, I'm not going to say anything. No, no, no. In the Spiritist sense, to tolerate is to understand so much so that I don't feel unnerved with that person's shortcoming or difference. That's the Spiritist take on tolerance. When Allan Kardec said to us that there is a threefold dynamic to make a spiritist center work at its best. He said, the first one is work. If we don't work, labor, a spiritist center is not standing. We also need solidarity, so we need to help one another. And he said the third one, tolerance. Inevitably, if anyone knows a little bit about humankind, we're going to know that in our nature there will be things that will push the buttons of others and vice versa. If we don't understand and give people a break and allow them to overcome that shortcoming or vice versa, we won't be able to be together. I know many people who go in and out of organizations, jobs, spiritist centers, families, because they don't tolerate. They don't understand. They expect perfection, but perfection doesn't exist on earth. We are perfectible beings, but we're not already done. We're doing ourselves. We're working on ourselves, sculpting ourselves. So relationships will never, people enter marriages with the idea, fantasy, and then one day they find out it's not that. It's gonna end. We're not talking about the cases of abuse, etc. We're talking about what Silvia is saying, challenges. She's saying family members are our biggest challenge, and they are supposed to be. But should we quit unless there is abuse? I'm not saying we should quit, but when there is abuse, we need to think a million times. I don't think Jesus ever showed us a model besides the martyrdom of when you allow yourself to be abused. If you read the book 2000 years ago by Emmanuel, you'll see the case of the Senator Publius Lentulus and Livia. There was a time in which he didn't understand her. He was very intolerant. He is the profile of an intolerant person. So much so that he didn't give a chance to her to explain herself. And she spent 25 years not being abused. She gave herself an opportunity to meet the Christ and to follow the Christ and to continue cherishing her Christianity to the point that one day she said, I think that's it. I want to give my life. And she gave her life. Right, Carol?
Right. It's a beautiful living testimony of what it means to follow the Christ in the most beautiful sense of the word, because she gave up positions, she gave up security, she gave up titles to do what her heart called for. And she still respected her family ties very much so. So she was able to follow the Christ, follow her heart, and still practice understanding her husband, whom, as Vanessa said, was very, very intolerant. She was able to see him as a spiritual child that needed understanding. To me, she's a great example of a Christian woman because she didn't have the fantasies that Vanessa mentioned. She was very realistic, very grounded in the Christ, and she was able to love her husband for his potential, not for who he was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And now we see her husband in action, really fulfilling his potential 2000 years later. And she is with the Christ himself, rooting for him and for all of us.
Exactly. That's a beautiful take, Carol. So when we go back to this message in the spiritual family, do you remember in the gospel according to Spiritism, there is here the explanation about chapter Hold on. 14. Okay. Spiritual family, material family. It's item 8. And it says to us precisely two types of families. This is in the Gospel According to Spiritism by Kardec, chapter 14, item 8. Families, there are two types of families, says Kardec. Families through spirit ties and families through corporeal ties. The former are permanent, are strengthened through purification, and are perpetuated in the spirit world through the many migrations of the soul. The previous one is fragile, like matter itself, and extinguished over time, often dissolved morally even in the current lifetime. This is what Jesus wanted to make understood by saying to his disciples, "Here are my mother and my brothers, that is, my family through the ties of the Spirit, because all who do the will of my Father who is in heaven are my brother, my sister, and my mother," etc., etc. So when our beautiful Emmanuel is telling us about in the spiritual family, he's talking about the amplified possibility of our connections. And he says this: the more we get to know of ourselves, the more we feel obligated to understand and excuse people. Why? Because the more we know of ourselves, we know our limitations. Mhm. We go through problems and limitations sometimes just to shake us up and say, hey, come on. People and you're made of the same thing. You cannot demand on others what you cannot deliver yourself. And if you can deliver that, you cannot deliver other things. So he says the more we know ourselves, we need to understand others. Did he give us a tip or not? He did, because he said, the secret to knowing and understanding others relies in understanding ourselves. If I don't understand others, it's a sign that I don't understand myself. So that's why I become more intolerant. Hmm? So he says the need for coexistence. He said the need. Because how do you feel? How do we feel when somebody comes and they're different and we push them away? It's aversive. We want to isolate ourselves. We don't want to be together. And then it's against the laws of life, the law of society. The law of society is something we need to comply. How compliant have we been towards being social beings? It's in our nature. We cannot go against it. Oh, Vanessa, it is too hard, but we cannot give up. Ah, but people, I prefer to be with only these people. But then we're not gonna progress because then we're on the same mode, the same mode, the same mode, right, Carol?
Right. And as we know, we are spirits that are bound to progress. We are here in school to progress. And we are actually connected with family members that can push us to progress. This is why we need to understand and tolerate each other, because often family members show us the very aspects of ourselves that we are in need to work on. They help us practice the very lessons that we are here to practice. So they are actually wonderful teachers that were assigned to us by the Christ so that we could put into practice what we have learned not only in this life but throughout the many lives that we have experienced. Now it's quote unquote exam time, and usually the family members are there to test us to see if we are able to put the teachings that we know into practice. This is why Emmanuel, as an excellent educator, is summing up those teachings, reminding us, come on, guys, it's exam time. Let me give you a few tips. This is what you need to study, and this is what you're going to need to practice, to put into practice. And then the very family members that are around us test us exactly on those aspects. And sometimes I even ask myself, wow, how did they know? And they know and they test us. And then we have the opportunity, as we learned yesterday, to embrace that test and say, I can do it because I am a child of God. I am divine. I have divine potential. It's up to me to bring it forth, to bring it forward. And the
Exactly.
family members are there to support us in that endeavor.
Exactly. So Carrie is reminding us of that. And as Emmanuel tells us about the need of coexistence, and he talks about blessed reciprocity, okay, in the various courses of tolerance. He says various courses of tolerance on earth. So if we go to the Spirit's book, Law of Society, question and answer 769, Kardec asks, so why do some people feel this pleasure for absolute isolation? What is the answer? Selfish satisfaction. There are those, there are also those who find satisfaction in drunkenness. Do you approve of that? God cannot consider as pleasing a life in which people condemn themselves to being useless to everyone. We're born to be useful. We're born to be useful. Are you depressed? So keep affirming to yourself, I'm born to be useful. I am born to be useful. How can I be depressed? I understand. There are 10,000 reasons why people may get into a real depression. But to get out of it, we need to put God in our center, the center of the universe. This is critical. And then tell ourselves, I am magnetized by God. And feel yourself being bathed by the rays of life that come from God. And then the next step is we feel ourselves, I am useful. I am useful. And you wake up saying, I am useful. And I am useful in every way, physical, emotional, spiritual, social. There is nothing that is useless on us or in us. Look at nature. So that affirmation, I allow myself to be bathed by God. And then tell yourself, I am useful. There are days in which you are sad and we have challenges in life and we doubt our capacity, but then we reaffirm it to ourselves. I am useful. And then here, the spirits are saying, what is to be thought of those who live in absolute seclusion in order to escape the pernicious contact of the world? What is the answer of the spirits? Though doubly selfish. Uh-huh. Wow. Wow. So you can keep reading that in the Spirit's book, question and answer 770 and onwards, talking about social life. And he says, now we're going to talk about something that happens every day. He says, we need to coexist, okay? We mirror each other. It's unbelievable when Emmanuel says that. Because in 1972, no science had enough substance to validate this. But now we have biology, neuroscience to prove to us that Emmanuel is right. Literally, we have mirror neurons. And when we look at each other, we are bathing each other in our own waters, in each other's waters. But he says, do not do this to criticize the other person. That's what we usually do. I'm impressed when people come to a meeting. I've seen this before. There was a time somebody was visiting from far away, and the person got into the Spirit Center. It was a beautiful meeting. When we left, that person came to me and said, what do you think of the meeting? I said, great. I'm not so sure. And I said, why? I saw the face of that person. They didn't look happy. I saw the face of the other person. They did. I thought I this. And I'm like, excuse me. First, we were in a spirit center. Two, seek the good for God's sakes. Seriously, huh? We need to seek the good. Let us seek the good. How can we enter a spirit center with that mindset? Trying to find out about the shortcomings or the limitations of others. But how do I practice seeking the good? I'll give you an example. One day, Mentor Joseph said, seeking the good is like when you look at a puppy dog, and you start admiring the fluffiness of the dog. Right, Karen?
Right.
The fluffiness of the dog, the cuteness of the dog. You're like, oh my gosh, that's seeking the good. But why between a puppy dog, a human baby, and an adult, we start being harsh and we stop seeing the good? Sometimes the person has beautiful eyes. Oh, they have nothing beautiful. Sometimes they have beautiful hands. Sometimes the tone of voice is so beautiful. Sometimes the way they speak is beautiful, or the way they are quiet and listen. Wow, that's so beautiful. So there's so many nuances of the beauty that we need to be open. And why do we only seek the distorted portions of it all? Seeking the good is opening ourselves to identifying the best in others. And he says, not to criticize, but to bless each other. Okay? And Gabriel Inácio is here. Hello, Gabriel. Thank you for being with us. So then the next step, he outlines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9, well, let's say this way, types of attitude. Okay? That if we observe this attitude in us or in others, we're the ones who need to be tolerated. Example number 1. Let's go, Carol. You and
Let's
I
go
together.
together.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Together, we're going to
Okay.
do this. Okay?
Sure.
First one, the attitude in which we identify the imperfect side of others without observing the positive side. That person, says Emmanuel, needs understanding and tenderness because they are intolerant.
Exactly. They are spiritual children that are in need of a spiritual hug
Yeah.
and love and understanding.
For example, let's say you go to the beach. Who loves the beach? And you see the sea, the waves, the birds, the sand, the wind, the sun. And I know people
That feels good.
That feels good, right? I
And
know.
visualizing it all.
Oh gosh, me too, Carol. And then the next step, I see people, sorry friends, I see people who start observing the people who are passing by and if they are obese or not. Wow. I know people who do this and I feel so sorry for them because they're missing the beauty. And they tell me, Vanessa, how can people come to the beach and be that obese? I said, but they need the beach. Like we need the beach.
Yeah.
And if we point our fingers to them, one day we will be going through the challenge of being obese because there are people who are obese because they are hormonally imbalanced. It's an expiation. We can be the next ones in the line. So how can we point our finger and not see the beauty in people? I know so many obese people that are so much more beautiful inside. And I say this not because I'm God, but because the little that I evaluated compared to other people who are fit, they're much more beautiful. They're more loving and more caring
Kinder,
and kinder,
gentler.
gentler.
Mhm.
So I'm not saying let's go obese, no, right, Care?
Right.
But we're just giving an example. And forgive me. I know it's a sensitive topic, but we need to talk about it. We can't be that intolerant to the challenges of humanity. And now we're going to share something with you spiritual. When we used to do our mediumistic meetings in Baltimore, at the Spirit side of Baltimore, I remember a mediumistic meeting in 2011 after the occurrence of the the Twin Towers.
Right.
I remember quite clearly a spirit saying that many spirits who were avenging the United States, they were inducing people to overeating, to destroy their self-image, to destroy the identity of America. Wow. What a what a plain disaster. But it looks like it's really happening. So we need to observe how much obsession takes place in our lives and induces us to our daily habits, including intolerance. Including. And the next one is the attitude in which we never want to forgive the offenses we were subjected to. Never. Is it hard for you to let go, to begin anew with the person, or are you still there? Hi, Sylvia, you're so adorable. Welcome, Sylvia. But here we're talking about holding grudges. Emmanuel is saying we cannot go there, or we are intolerant. When you say, I'm never going to talk to that person again, for a while, we're allowed because sometimes it takes time for people to be on the same page.
And we need to process our feelings too. We can't run away from
Exactly, that's a good point. Then, the attitude in which we only remember the adversaries to destroy them and never recognize their difficulties and sufferings. Everybody's a human being. Sometimes we're so intolerant that we become insensitive to that person's life struggle. He says here, the ones who analyze the reasons of others just to focus on the rights that belong to them. That's a narcissistic point right here.
Oh, for sure.
It sounds like
It
narcissism.
sounds like narcissism.
When you look at somebody just to,
See what you can get from them. What is in it for you? Like what we call the hidden agenda. You go in, you are helpful, you are understanding on the surface, charismatic, but deep down you're looking for what you're getting back in
yes,
return for your efforts. And Emmanuel is saying, go in with a clear heart without looking for receiving anything in return.
exactly. He also talks about the attitude in which the person cannot see themselves. They don't allow themselves to be corrected. They think they are. If you tell them you did something wrong, they have a hard time saying they are sorry, and they never take responsibility. Or they need understanding, tenderness, because they are unfit in their intolerance. Bottom line, these are facets of intolerance. And then Kara's gonna keep reading and telling the other ones, right,
Of
Kara?
course, absolutely. The next one is that they are considered to be invulnerable in the opinions they issue or conduct that they embrace. That means that they consider themselves to be perfect or above everybody else. So they harvest a sense of superiority. They don't see themselves to be on the same level as everyone else. And as we know, God has created us with the same beautiful divine potential. So that's a good exercise for us to remind ourselves that we are children of God in the same way that everyone around us is a beautiful child of God. So to consider ourselves to be invulnerable and superior to others is not a conduct that is considered to be Christian. And Emmanuel is reminding us to embrace our family from the point of view of equality, from the point of view of embracing everyone for their divine potential. And if we know someone who is constantly placing themselves above everybody else, saying, I'm not going to do this unless I do it my way, or my way is better than your way, or you don't know what you're talking about. Emmanuel is reminding us to have compassion and understanding for them because, as Emmanuel says, they are unfit in their own intolerance. And Emmanuel even goes further to say they are always helpless. Why? Because they are, like we are, also blind spiritually. These are their blind spots as they are ours as well. So, this is a good opportunity for self evaluation and for practice of tolerance towards others. Are these some of our own blind spots? Vanessa will continue our discussion here of
Oh,
other potential blind spots that we
yeah.
may have, right? We were moving on to this one.
So we don't recognize
Yes,
our the faults. When we don't recognize the faults that we have, and we keep an eye on the faults of others. This is very critical. I think of all things in intolerance, that's the most critical one. When we forget to see not our shortcomings, but the things that we need to work on ourselves. We don't want to put us down, saying that saying that people go by like, oh, I'm so bad at this. Don't say that about yourself. And don't allow your kids to say that. Okay? We needed to give ourselves an opportunity to keep on blossoming. So instead of saying, I'm bad at this, Oh, I am working on this, or I'm going to be working on this. Chris Anastasia is saying that the talk at the SSB tonight was about this. They talked about spiritual family, family being a test, letting go of the past, being tolerant, seeking the good. That's beautiful. And they say, in our daily life, the facet of intolerance when we're not able to give a word of consolation to those who have fallen morally, when we condemn them and we don't help. They come and say, I want help, and you're like, no, I'm not going to talk to that person. Hmm? When they legitimately they want to restore themselves. Because there are people when they are in a psychopathic state of mind, when they are in a narcissistic state of mind, they don't see their shortcomings. As Emmanuel is saying, they are intolerant. And when they use the truth just to damage, injury, hurt somebody, we need to be careful. We need to be very careful. He says, if this is us, this is a good checklist to ask ourselves, am I in any of this? Because if I am, I'm being tolerant. If somebody's being like this, they are being tolerant. So what do we need when somebody is in this state of mind of intolerance? They need understanding, tenderness, understanding, and tenderness. One day they're going to come out of that shell, the hard shell. They're going to become softer. For now, we pray. Saul of Tarsus was like that. He received a lot of understanding and tenderness since Stephen, Abigail, Peter, and many others. He was able to soften up. Now it's our turn. If we are less intolerant, to understand and to keep praying, understanding, so one day others can also be given a chance. And why does he talk about intolerance? Emmanuel talks about intolerance in the framework of our spiritual family, because he's telling us the need of for coexistence. We're not going to progress by isolating ourselves. Now we see how much Emmanuel is in great synchronicity with Kardec. Because when we go to the book, the Spirit's book, questions and answers 769, 770 onwards, we're going to see the beauty of what the Spirits have revealed and how Emmanuel developed it. We cannot isolate ourselves. That's not an option. We cannot expose ourselves to harmful situations either, but we need to find a way to keep on investing in our relationships, softening our feelings, our affections, seeking the good, seeking the good. Somebody pushed a button and you say, well, but they have these 10,000 qualities. I'm not going to trash it all out because of this or these, because I can identify 10,000 more. Unless it's in a case of abuse at work, in our friendships, in our communities, in our closest relationships in family. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about intolerance in general. Okay? So that's the message of tonight, friends. Emmanuel really is preparing us for a new era, an era of peace, an era of more love, more tenderness. I don't think we've heard this enough, Emmanuel saying this word tenderness. Who would have expected it? He received a lot of it from Livia and Jesus. And now it's his turn to teach us how to soften ourselves up. Okay? So, tomorrow when we come back, we're going to be studying chapter 53. Chapter 53 is about having faith. Having faith. So if we think it's not possible, maybe you're thinking about this, right? Maybe we're all thinking it's not going to be possible because it's so hard. Emmanuel, as an educator, he knew we were going to be feeling this,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then he says, oh,
He
well,
also felt like
he
this
felt
when he
like
was
this.
incarnated.
Exactly,
Yeah. So
exactly.
he knows when Emmanuel speaks to us, he doesn't speak to us only from on high, from his position of a highly evolved spirit. He speaks to us from the perspective of someone who has lived incarnations like ours as well. So he has felt our difficulties and he's speaking from experience.
That's a very important take. Carol is reminding us Emmanuel does not come from his experience. He comes from ideas.
High
He comes
above.
from his experience,
Yes.
right? So tomorrow when we come back at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to be studying chapter 53 about having faith. And he says, and this is a teaser, likewise, let us trust in the teachings of the Christ and practice them as needed. And the individual will edify their own happiness. Really? Is that easy? Oh my gosh. I think it is. And do you think we're sharing this because we think it's just beautiful sharing? No, because it really makes us stronger and we're stronger together. Right? Gabriel Inácio is asking when? 11 p.m. So, friends, for now, we wish you lots of blessings, right, Carol?
Tenderness and love.
Tenderness and love and a lot of tolerance,
Yeah.
understanding. Let us practicing by seeking the good. Let's find the cuteness of everything and everyone. A kiss and a hug, and until tomorrow, God willing, friends.